Okay, so this is part number 2 or approach number 2 on the frequency separation technique. And this is honestly what I think most photographers will fall into. The portrait photographer, boudoir photographer, maybe even wedding photographer who is not going to spend a lot of time editing just one image and just needs a basic and quicker way of retouching photos and so it's this is not like the professional high end kind of level of detail. I didn't want to mix those two together because I didn't want people to be commenting on YouTube, oh my god, this is not professional or whatever, shut up. I know, but this is a different type of approach that honestly exists. And but I also think that those plugins like Portrait Professional and stuff like that are complete dog shit. So I don't like their outcome. So this is like a middle of the road where we're doing technically the same, let's call it codes, or the same, behind the scenes. This is basically what Portrait Professional does, but if you do it in a semi-manual way, you can get better results that don't look like somebody just took a dump in your photos. So anyways, this is what we're going for. So this is the after and this is the before. And so this involves a little bit of quite a lot of frequency separation and a little bit of dodging and burning. So I'm going to show you the frequency separation part in this video. So again, this is what we're going for and this is where we're starting. So let's begin. And let me get rid of all of that. Okay, now I'm not even gonna show you how to do the frequency separation layers. I did that on the other video, so if you want to go back to that one and go over that part, if not, just move on. Continuing with this video. This I'm going to use an action that I recorded to simplify all those other steps, and I'm going to share the action, but just I highly recommend you go to the other video and see how I set up the layers so that you can make sense of what the action is actually doing. So I have my action, it's right here selected. I'm gonna click play, and the only thing that the action asks you to is to select the level of blur that you want for the frequency separation layers. And again, if you don't know what this is, then you should definitely go back to the other video. And for this, I'm going to select, let's see where we are. Probably 4.4. Okay, that's good enough, I think. 30.3. Let's see. I don't know. Okay, so this photo was taken in natural light, and it's not the sharpest photo, so it's all available light. It's all window light, and it's on an all white room, so there's a lot of bounce. It's extremely soft. So even if she has some pimples or things like that, they're not gonna show up too much. That's one of the advantages of doing this kind of work. And again, if you're a family photographer, you're a portrait photographer, this is probably the look that you most want to go for, this type of lighting, because it solves those type of issues to begin with. Having said that, again, it's not the sharpest photo that I've taken, but we're just gonna deal with this. So anyways, now we have our frequency separation layers, and again, I'm gonna make a copy of the low frequency. And I'm gonna say one more time, if you don't know why I'm making a copy as opposed to just creating an empty layer to retouch, definitely go back and watch the other video. Okay, honestly, her skin is not that big of a deal, and I think most of these things are gonna be on the high frequency anyways, but let's just go about it real quick. And right now it's we're in this low frequency layer, and there isn't a lot of textures in here. Obviously, that's the purpose of it. But if you were working on an area that has more textures, you have to retouch following the skin textures. Like if you see me right now, I'm going up and down, and I'm going left to right. If that were not the case, I will go only following the flow of the texture. That will make this healing even better, even if you're not doing frequency separation, even if you're just doing the regular cloning, quick cloning and healing, and that helps you a lot. And here I'm just I'm not trying to, again, I'm not trying to get rid of everything, or fixing everything with frequency separation. I'm just trying to pave the road that will make dodging and burning easier, faster, and better. So I'm just going real quick with the small imperfections here. I'm not thinking too much about it. I'm deciding if I want to remove those. No, okay. So this is when good judgment comes. This falls in the neck. Some people might not like them. I am going to keep those in because she's turning. Her body is turning, and without this, it's going to look pretty awkward. And then you're gonna end up in one of those blogs where you're like, "Oh my god, look at this horrible retouching job," and So have some common sense. If it was something like over here, where is the actual skin folding up a little bit, because it's pressing against the other part of the skin, then yes. But when she's turning, that's a natural thing that happens. Everyone will have that, and I will not retouch that because it's not going to look natural. So that's pretty much it with the old manual frequency separation. But I am going to go over kind of like the cheat way of doing it, which is not to blur to select and blur like I have on that video a long time ago. And again, here, just because these little areas are in shadow, it means that the light is hitting them differently, and because I know I'm going to be removing that shadow, I'm bringing in the texture from the areas where it's not in shadow. And again, this helps us get rid of the tiny hairs, because those are all the way onto the high frequency layer. And I don't think I want to get rid of this completely, just soften it. Yeah, sometimes I use that to my advantage. So like in here we had the hard texture of the little fold right here under the eyes, and I knew that was not only on the high frequency, that it was also on the low frequency, and for in this case I'm using that to my advantage because I want to remove the high form of the the defined form of the wrinkle, but I don't want to remove the shadow, at least not completely, because then again it just looks flat, and that's not how it works. Our eyes pop up of the socket a little bit, so that is going to happen to everyone, this shadowy area right here, and bags under our eyes, they're also gonna happen to everyone because this is where the eye socket is. So don't get rid of all of this completely, because that's when it starts looking unnatural and fake and cheap. And honestly, there's not too much, at least right now, to work on. But what we're gonna do next, now that I'm done with this, is, and maybe I'll come back once I start working on the other stuff. These textures are gonna pop up probably. But what I'm gonna do with the other technique in frequency separation, which I barely touched in the other video, is doing small passes with the mixer brush tool, with the purpose, in this case, is with the purpose of smoothing out all of these little areas where we have the reddening and the different levels of the skin where it's because she's out and the sun is hitting you, and especially with Caucasian people, so you have all these little areas of unevenness that we have, and these are a little bit bigger areas of unevenness. And if you watch my dodging and burning video, the illusion of a smooth surface is caused, or a non-smooth surface is caused by the lighting hitting the highlights or the shadow areas. You could remove of all of this using dodging and burning, and it will take you a long time. And because this photo is not meant for a magazine, is not meant for a billboard, it's 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 a portrait, it's a boudoir portrait. I'm going to use frequency separation. I'm going to use the mixer brush tool to make all of these tones seem a little bit even, and do it in a quick-ish way, without going on either extreme of taking too much time with it and completely destroying the quality of the photo. So just for the sake of being non-destructive, I'm gonna make a duplicate layer of the low frequency, and I'm gonna go back to my mixer brush tool. And again, if you watch the part 1 of this video, or the first method, the first technique, you saw me do this already. I just didn't explain it as much because I didn't want to confuse people, and I don't do that with high fashion and beauty stuff, at least not to this extent, or at least not for these purposes. So anyways, now we start, and what the mixer brush tool does, just in case you need a refresher or you didn't watch the video, I'm gonna sample from the image the colors and the shapes in here, and it's gonna use that and mix it with what's already in here. So it's kind of like a double down, and that's gonna mix those two together. And if I apply my brushes, slow enough and on the right direction, in here direction matters a lot, following the shape and the textures, I'm going to create a smoother surface. And because we are below the high frequency layer, the higher textures are still gonna be there, and I'm not gonna mess them up as much as I would have otherwise. So let's start. I'm gonna hide the high frequency layer, and if you see right now in this video, when I was working on the high frequency, I was just working straight on it because I knew that I didn't really need to create a duplicate. I don't know, these things just come with experience, I guess. Anyways, let me sample this area, and I'm working with really low flow, really low wetness, and I'm just painting in around her arm. In this case right now, you might think that her arm is a little bit too pink, and here it's a little bit too yellowy, and you might want to even those a little bit, kind of like meet them in the middle. I'm not gonna worry about that right now. I'm just worrying about, or I'm just working on her skin, on the look, on the textures of the skin, making them a little bit more even, and fixing some of the shadowy areas that I may want to brighten up a little bit, or to simplify. A lot of, like, all of this boils down to simplification. Like, all of these tiny areas of variation of lightness and shadows and colors, those are not simple, so it's a complex texture and it doesn't look as smooth. That's the idea behind it, or that's how our mind works behind closed doors or whatever. So in here, these shadows, they have nothing to do with the smoothness of the skin, or with how her skin is reacting to the sunlight, but because we have patchy, shadowy areas created by the hair, these again, these are complex patterns that we want to simplify. So by having the same mentality, I'm just going to make this a little bit less of a distraction. I think that's the word that I was looking for. And I'm just enhancing a little bit here of the collarbone. If you see, so this is almost like the mentality that you should have when you're dodging and burning, but this is more of a general way of going about it, and try to be more conservative about it, more general, more broader brush strokes, not overthinking about it, but also not overdoing it, if that makes sense. So in here, I am going to be brightening up the shadowy areas, and I'm also introducing a little bit of the pink, but that's just a side effect of selecting a lighter area. I'm not worrying about fixing skin tones, and I might show you how to make those even if I have time. If I feel like the video is running short or something, I'll show you how I fix color unevenness in skin, especially in this type of photo shoots. Okay, now I'm going to go to her face, and again, it's the same mentality, making this a little bit smooth, getting rid of some of the shadowy areas here, sampling from the highlight. Now I'm sampling from a mid-tone because I don't want this to pop as a highlight too much, because this is on the shadow area. Now going back to the highlight. So in here, just think of, portions of highlight or shadow more than parts of a face. I don't know if that makes sense or if that sounds contradictory. Like in here, I sampled some of the highlight in the forehead to have a base highlight and color to make the nose bridge a little bit smoother. Not because I'm not copying the textures, again, because we're using frequency separation. This could not be done without frequency separation. I probably forgot to mention that. Okay, now I'm gonna sample a shadowy area just to define a little bit more of the shadows in case we went too overboard with the with the smoothness and stuff. And now you should see the difference, particularly here on her arm and on her on her torso or whatever, of how smoother it looks. And again, we don't have any texture right now. It looks like shit, I know. Now we introduce the texture back, and we can lower the opacity a little bit, because now we made it easier, and now it looks smooth. It doesn't look as fake, and we made it easier for the dodging and burning to come in next. Okay, so now we applied this prep work. This is how I will do frequency separation, working on the to work on the skin. Now if you want to fix the color, and this is beyond frequency separation, but whatever, let's just keep going with this portrait. Maybe this could be an all-in-one video. Let's create a new layer. Let's go back to a regular brush tool. Let's go back to opacity and flow at 100%, and sample an area where you think we have good skin tone. All right, and let's try to pick a middle, a mid-tone, not a highlight, because that won't work. Now, this is what I do, just so we know where we're painting. And again, we're not being extremely precise because this is not a high-end purpose of a job. So just go and paint in where you see the skin getting the colors messed up. I wouldn't do this on the face because the face has makeup, and then that kind of like get rid of the purpose of the makeup. But I'm gonna do it probably right here. And now I'm gonna duplicate that layer, and I'm gonna change this layer, the first one, to color. The other layer, I'm gonna change it to hue, color, and these are way too too intense. Now I'm gonna group them, and I'm gonna reduce the opacity. And I usually reduce the opacity of them equally. And if I start seeing strange things happening, then I do them manually. But I usually keep them up below 50, and you might not even see a difference right now. Let me go back to 100 and mess with them individually. Yeah, and then the hue can be a little bit higher. Yeah, so the hue, I wanted it to be a little bit higher, the color a little bit lower, and that gives us, so you might not even see a lot of a difference, but it makes, I'm pointing at the screen like you can see it, but just focus on this area here around her arm and here where we had too much green and too much of pink. Okay, now we smoothen that out. Now let's work on, I don't know, dodging and burning. Let's go all the way with this photo. Dodging and burning. Again, I'm using my action to set up the layers. Dodging and burning. I think I'm gonna keep that the same. Start like that. Let's start by looking at the big picture and going like this. I am dodging right now. And again, if you want to know more about dodging and burning, because I'm not explaining anything, go to my other video that I posted a few days ago, where I go in more detail. That video is an hour long, and honestly it needs to be, because there's just too much that's going on when it comes to those techniques. But it is labeled, it is timestamped in the description on that video. So if you only need to be refreshing on a few things about dodging and burning, you can skip ahead to the things that you might already know, or to the things that interest you the most. So in here, if you saw on frequency separation, when I was smoothing it out with the mixer brush tool, that made it so that it's now way simpler to come in here with the dodging and burning, mostly with the dodging, and smoothing that area out. Now let's go back to her face and just work very delicately. Have patience. Patience is key when it comes to all things retouching. And one thing that I also recommend, which is it's kind of like, it's kind of like a drawback when one does these videos, because when I'm not doing videos, I do my retouching work, and then I let it sit. Sometimes for a day, sometimes it only needs 1 hour or a couple hours, and then come back to it, and you will see what you messed up, what you went over, what you didn't pay too much attention that you should have, because you get used to seeing your photo, you get used to seeing the image, for however long you spend, how much time you spend editing it, that you get used to it, and you get used to the bad colors, you get used to the bad retouching. So just look at it again with fresh eyes after a while, and you start seeing it better, more, with a more solid mind, which I don't have the benefit of that when I'm editing a video, because I edit the video, I'm done, and then I stop recording. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why probably my portfolio looks better than my video tutorials of my work, because of that, just because of that same thing. Because whatever I'm retouching on a video, it's part of a series that I spend a little bit more time, either in that photo or in another photo, when I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that a little bit better. So you have the benefit of leaving your image sit for a while and then come back to it. And I'm gonna do the burning. I think I took away too much of the shape of the arm for the sake of making it brighter. So if you see, because this is real time and I am not fast forwarding it, I'm not making a time lapse out of this, you see how relatively quickly we've been able to get some results. Again, I'm doing this shittier because I have to explain over. That makes me less focused on what I'm doing, and also I'm working slower because I have to explain it. So just imagine how fast you can do this when you don't have to explain it to someone, and when you're not distracted by what you have to say next. And the fact that I have to keep talking, otherwise this video gets a little bit boring. Now let's work on some of the details. Like, I like filling in the eyebrows. In the other video, you probably saw me do that. I don't know. I don't remember if I went over, but I just basically like to make this, even. And if you decided to not watch the other video and that this is just enough for you, which might be, I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence, and you're wondering why I'm editing in black and white, is because color is a big distraction when you're editing, when you're doing skin work, especially when you're doing dodging and burning, but also sometimes when you're doing frequency separation. Sometimes it happens that I see that I'm past the frequency separation step. I didn't remove the color, because most of the times I don't, to be honest. Or when it comes to, I only remove the color until I'm doing the dodging and burning. And sometimes what happens is that I'm onto this stage, and once I remove the color, I start seeing little things that I should have retouched, that I didn't because the color was distracting. So that, if you're wondering why, this is why. and I'm doing the eyes like I said in the other video, the highlight, and then kind of like the opposite side of where the catch light is. And this is a little bit stranger because there are tiny catch lights everywhere, because this room had a lot of like small windows. It didn't have one big window or a few big windows, and everything was white. The floor, the ceilings, and the walls. I think the ceiling was black, to be honest. Let's go eyes. In here I'm gonna follow whatever little texture we have on the eyes, just to brighten this a little bit. And this makes a big difference. I've noticed that dedicating this time to fixing the eyes, especially on a portrait, it makes a big difference in the final image. Hopefully you'll be able to see it today. Went the wrong way. And I don't know if I'm going too fast or you're not catching it, but I am changing my brush settings. I'm just using my my presets, because I already explained the details of my mentality of when I use certain settings again in another video. So just, I don't know if you're paying attention, but I keep going to this part right here when I already have my presets. All right, let's see where we are. Probably let's make the lips brighten up a little bit. Oh, again. Go back. All right, let's zoom out. And I'm probably gonna do more general burning. So yeah, you see, we also brightness gives it's another way of giving illusion of softness. So if you see right now the arm, it looks soft, it looks okay, but now that it's a little bit brighter, it looks even, better, I guess. Better defined. Damn stupid photo. And I don't know, that's a weird thing. And if you think you went too far, or I went too far, you can always, especially if you're like me, who does most of the dodging and burning in the dodging layer. What I like doing sometimes is I go back to my general settings of the brush tool when I was dodging, and then go with the now in the burning, and reduce the highlight a little bit. And I'm gonna make this area right here a little bit darker, because that's gonna shape her body a little bit better. It makes people look skinnier or whatever. I'm just gonna darken this to reduce the attention that is going to the arms, because the attention should be more on the face. And again, I'm gonna come in here with the burning tool more on the shadow area. So I am taking into account, even though we want to remove and reduce and change some of these shadows and highlights, it's still taking into account the general position of where highlights and shadows already are, just so you follow along with the natural world. And again, go like this. I maybe went too far, but now I think I went too far generally with the burning. So I might want to, I don't know. This is the problem of doing everything in one layer, because I fixed the eyes in one layer and I did this in one layer. That I think I went too far on the general, but if I reduce the opacity, I also reduce the strength of the fixing of the eyes. So in this case, here's what you can do. You can go back to the dodge layer, if you agree with me. You can go back to the dodge layer and paint in light again, or in the burn layer, instead of painting it with white, paint with black, because this is what the layer looks like. Okay, this is my burning, and painting with black will reduce the effect of the burning, as opposed of adding more effect to the highlights. Damn it! So that's what I'm gonna do right now. And for this, I'm probably gonna use a higher, sensitivity brush. Sometimes I even do it by just looking at the burn layer, because I might not see that big of a difference. Oh, and you do that by pressing what is it? Command? No. Alt or Option, depending if you're on Mac or PC, Alt or Option, click on the mask, and you will see what the mask is actually doing. Okay, so now that looks a little bit better, and I think I am done. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. If you saw me do something that you were like, what was that? I might make another video explaining that, but that's pretty much it for now.